For a uterus-having person, giving birth is usually seen as the ultimate task to be checked off the to-do list of life. Becoming a parent is a signifier of succeeding in the animal kingdom. Your genes are successfully passed on, and you have completed your duty and can progress on peacefully knowing that your lineage is established. But, for many, this permanently joyous experience can manifest into something dark and isolating. Now sit back, grab a snack, and make yourself comfortable because we're diving into a heavy topic. Today, I want to have an open conversation about postpartum depression. Postpartum depression, or as I'll be calling it PPD, is a form of depression that affects 1 in 7 women after giving birth. Now, I know what you're thinking. Postpartum is a disease that turns mothers into baby killers. I just want to stop you there. Not only is that wrong, it's incredibly harmful, and the people being harmed are our Black women. I'm going to take you on a journey in which we learn what postpartum depression is, how it manifests, and what you can do to treat it. Let's get into it. Now, postpartum depression isn't just some newfangled mental health issue that's popped up in the last 30 years. There's been a long trend of women suffering silently with medicine ignorantly supporting it. Rooted largely in sexism and the theory that women are the inferior gender, hysteria cases ran rampant during the late 1800s and early 1900s. Basically, anything a woman did that wasn't deemed acceptable behavior was considered hysteria and required treatment. Because of this rise in this type of mental illness, the period became known as the golden age of hysteria. Rooted in the Greek term hysteron, meaning womb, hysteria was known as a strictly female illness that was caused by a woman's delicate constituents and emotionality. These women would be shut away from the rest of the world, forced to live large portions of their lives in isolation until they were fixed. Many doctors believed it to be caused by the uterus, which is why they concluded that men could not become hysterical. Now, fast forward 100 years, doctors finally got around to acknowledging the various mental illnesses that affect women. Surprisingly, the psychiatric community did not officially recognize depression in the postpartum period until the 4th edition of its Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, published in 1994, 29 years ago. Even now, the DSM-4 identifies depression within a postpartum onset as being only depression that appears within 4 weeks after delivery of a baby. However, many experts argue that PPD may develop any time within the first year following delivery, and clinicians are encouraged to screen women for periods longer than just those 4 weeks following the birth of their children. The postpartum, or postnatal period, begins after childbirth and is typically considered to end within 6 weeks. However, there are 3 distinct but continuous phases of the postnatal period. The acute phase, lasting for 6 to 12 hours after birth, the subacute phase, lasting 6 weeks, and the delayed phase, lasting up to 6 months. It's during the subacute phase, the 6 weeks after birth, that psychological disorders can emerge. Among these are postpartum depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and in rare cases, postpartum psychosis. Postpartum mental illnesses can affect both mothers and fathers, and although the conversation surrounding PPD may be sparse, it occurs very often. There is a pretty uniform stigma being presented. Women with PPD are out of control, likely to kill themselves or their kids, and need to be hospitalized or to have their children taken away from them. When mothers with postpartum aren't being turned into the murderous villainess, the disorder is trivialized. 1988's For Keeps, for example, follows Darcy, a high school senior who becomes pregnant. When she suffers from an inability to bond with her child, Darcy's depression ends up being little more than a joke. At one point, her partner's grade school-age sister takes one look at the zoned-out Darcy, heaves a sigh, and delivers the diagnosis, postpartum depression, as if it were a punchline. Other depictions of postpartum depression show mothers drowning their babies and posing as a threat to their families in some maternal instinct version of The Shining. Some good examples of postpartum depression in media include season 6 of Scrubs, a medical comedy drama that follows hospital staff. In it, a character, Carla, experiences postpartum depression, and instead of having her mental health trivialized, she is helped and listened to by her husband and peers alike. Another example is A Mouthful of Air, a movie starring Amanda Seyfried and Finn Withrock, in which Seyfried's character experiences postpartum after the birth of their second child. This film highlights the beauty of motherhood, but it also tackles the depression of Seyfried's character head-on and what it can do to a person in a family. Unfortunately, media representation of Black mothers with postpartum depression is sparse due to the overwhelmingly Eurocentric nature of American film and television. As I stated earlier, 1 in every 7 women will experience postpartum depression. Now, sometimes numbers are hard to visualize, so I'll paint a picture. As of April 2021, there were approximately 43.5 million mothers in the United States of America. 14% of these mothers will or have been affected by postpartum depression, resulting in roughly 6 million people. That's roughly the population of New York City. That's a whole island full of mothers that are suffering with postpartum depression. A 2005 study from the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York City found that 44% of Black women and nearly 47% of Hispanic women reported postpartum depressive symptoms compared to 31% of white women. This 44% of Black women can be evaluated to be roughly 2.6 million Black mothers. For reference, this correlates with the population of the city of Los Angeles in California. Though it affects 1 in 7 women, women of color, especially Black women, are woefully undiagnosed and untreated when it comes to PPD. Now, why is that? To put it plainly, racism. The large trend of undiagnosed Black mothers points to many societal and systemic barriers. Mental health in the Black community is like an ominous cloud that everyone sees yet nobody acknowledges. To be in poor mental health is to be seen as having a disability that is meant to be hidden from sight, similar to the ideals that plagued women in the late 19th to early 20th century. For Black women, this stigma affects every aspect of our existence, dating back hundreds of years. We can first see these stereotypes emerge during American chattel slavery with the NAMI characterization. The NAMI was the female slave who was responsible for household activities such as cooking and cleaning and taking care of the white children and slave children alike. She can be seen as the first example of the strong Black woman stereotype due to her endless responsibilities and expectation to provide and care without complaint. This stereotype outlived slavery and has manifested into a deep thorn that impales Black women and confines us to a box with no lid. The history of the strong Black women schema comes from decades of reinforcement of unrealistic stereotypes for Black women. Seen on television and read in books, Black women are expected to maintain an image of perfection and strength. To the world, Black women don't cry, yet we're expected to hold the weight of the world on our shoulders. Black women must fit into a box that paints us as aggressive and loud, yet extremely capable of playing the hand that has been dealt. With the stereotype looming over us like a constant, painful reminder of the struggles of our ancestors, struggling with depression, especially postpartum, can be an isolating disease. It is unlikely for communities to have open and honest conversations about it, and when a topic of mental health arises, harmful stigmas prevent those struggling from seeking help and support. Black people who struggle with mental health issues are often hesitant to receive help in fear of being labeled as weak. How are Black women expected to cope when our communities aren't willing to talk? Racism is working against our Black mothers. Racial discrimination is a toxic, uncontrollable, or unpredictable stressor that is associated not only with poor physical health, but also with psychological stress. Chronic stressors reduce coping resources and increase vulnerability to mental health problems. Research suggests that chronic exposure to environmental stressors, such as racism, across the lifespan contribute to the weathering of the health of Black women and consequently compromising their reproductive health. This is important because Black women experience higher rates of depression and anxiety during pregnancy and are at a greater risk for poor pregnancy outcomes. Perinatal depression has been linked to risk for adverse maternal and birth outcomes, including preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, preterm birth, and low birth weight. Many Black women, especially those with lower socioeconomic standings, face many stressors in life, making them more susceptible to essentially aging faster and predisposing them to incurring mental disorders such as postpartum depression and psychosis. The American medical system itself is not absolved from critique in this conversation. The medical system has long wronged the Black community, resulting in medical distrust that is seen to this day. From gruesome experiments on enslaved people to the forced sterilizations of Black women and the infamous Tuskegee syphilis study that withheld treatment from hundreds of Black men for decades, 7 out of 10 Black Americans say they're treated unfairly by the healthcare system, and 55% say that they distrust it. This distrust causes Black Americans and Black women to be less likely to seek treatment for illnesses and disorders when they arise. Access to medical insurance is another barrier that prevents Black mothers from receiving treatment for PPD. People of color have faced long-standing disparities in health coverage that contribute to disparities in health care. In 2019, of the 810,000 women of reproductive age with incomes below the poverty line, 29% were Black and uninsured without any pathway to affordable health coverage. Almost all lived in the South, where states generally have not expanded Medicaid. Medicaid is an important topic in the maternal health crisis, seeing that it pays for more than 40% of U.S. births and 65% of births to Black mothers. States that expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act have seen a significant rise in health coverage among women of reproductive age. This is important because Medicaid is the single largest payer for mental health services in the United States. In states where Medicaid has not been expanded to cover adults with incomes below the poverty line, the 29% of Black women that fall into this category do not have access to mental health care services. With the inability to pay healthcare fees, these women will never get diagnosed, let alone treated for any postnatal illnesses or disorders. As a whole, the healthcare industry needs to be reconstructed to ensure that everyone is guaranteed healthcare, regardless of their yearly income. Many mothers also fear the repercussions of reporting depression to medical professionals. Often, mothers who present with suicidal ideations are deemed a threat to themselves and their children. When this happens, Child Protective Services are involved and a mother can be separated from her child. CPS is used as a weapon against the Black community. It unfairly and disproportionately is used as a punishment against Black and brown low-income communities. More often than not, it does more harm than good, and in this case, the threat of CPS prevents mothers from feeling safe about being honest about their mental state. It's Rocks on YouTube explains this feeling in her video, Storytime, The Other Side of Motherhood, Postpartum Depression.
Would think that the best thing for these situations would be for you to go to the doctor and get the help. It's difficult to express how you feel when you have a new baby because, like I said, everybody feels like you should have this instant connection. If you don't have this instant connection, people think that you are a lesser than mom. If you have a feeling of resentment or anger or anything else, then people start to worry about you. Okay, so, they start feeling like, oh, you sure you can handle this? So you don't really want to go around telling people this, but you're feeling all this inside, okay? I shared with my mom how I was feeling, and, my mom was like, why don't you just go on and go to the doctor and see if maybe they can give you something? I didn't feel comfortable telling my doctor that I was feeling crazy, okay? Because you got this baby, and you don't really want them to take the baby, okay? Because this is your baby, okay? But you want to tell him. I wanted to tell him that I didn't want to be around the knives and the forks. But how's that going to sound to the doctor? Like, is the doctor going to call Children's Services and tell him to come pick up my baby? I don't want the boy somebody to take him. I don't think I'm that crazy, but yeah, my nerves is kind of bad here, doc. Now what we do about this? You feel like you can't really tell them all of that. So you kind of downplay it to the doctor. You downplay it to everybody. You just, people say, how you coming along? You just be like, oh, I'm tired, but I'll be okay. But you ain't really okay, y'all. You really ain't okay. You really are not okay until the baby starts sleeping through the night.
Depression and anxiety didn't look gloomy and down all the time. I was actually very high functioning, which means I would go drop the kids off, pick the kids up from school. I was volunteering at the school. I was doing everything that us moms do for our family. I would do all the things, come home, do homework. They would take a bath, read a story at nighttime, and then I would kiss everyone on the forehead, and then I would go into my bathroom at night and I would cry. Ugly cry, and just carrying around all of the anger, the irritation, the stress. I was carrying it around with me and trying to hide it really truthfully from my family. I didn't want them to see me down. I didn't want them to see me sad. And I remember particularly one time I'd done that, and I came out and my son kind of caught me, and I went out to the kitchen to get something, and he was like, Mom, why are you always so sad? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm happy. What are you talking about? Like, he's like, yeah, no.
Though it is a prevalent condition in mothers, postpartum depression often goes unrecognized and untreated. Often, this condition is downplayed to the baby blues, sadness that occurs once mother and fetus are separated into mother and newborn. But this phrase is dismissive and inaccurate. Once a woman gives birth, their estrogen and progesterone levels sharply decrease. These hormonal changes can cause anxiety, crying, and restlessness that goes away within the first 2 weeks after giving birth, while PPD progresses for weeks to months to years after birth. Many women get diagnosed with the baby blues and are told it will pass soon, when in reality they're experiencing postnatal depression. These misdiagnoses prevent mothers from receiving adequate care and can lead women to stop seeking mental health help in the future. April Sunny talks about unhelpful doctor visits in her video, Postpartum Depression Storytime.
I need help and no one sees that I need help.
And then your postpartum appointment, it's like they just throw you to the wolves. They go in and they check and make sure nothing was left behind, and they're like, oh, you're fine. But it's like, mentally, I am not okay. And I need somebody to realize that I am not okay. Who is paying attention? Who cares? I'm telling you, it was a very stressful time for me.
As stated earlier, PPD is often wrongly conflated with postpartum psychosis. Many people believe that for them or a loved one to have postpartum depression, they must have suicidal or murderous ideations. It is often thought that mothers with postpartum depression are the crib slashers of the world, but that simply isn't true. When you give birth, you may feel an overwhelming need to be a supermom. You may feel pressure to maintain your home life, care for your newborn, and keep a smile on your face, which can lead to the demise of yourself. Parenting is not a cookie-cutter process. It looks different for everyone. So, if you find yourself having trouble bonding with your baby, nursing, and maintaining the rest of your life, it is easy to spiral downward. Postpartum depression is characterized by feeling sad, worthless, hopeless, or guilty. You may feel that you aren't connecting with your baby as you should, and antiquated beliefs about what motherhood should look like may be contributing to this. These feelings may be coupled with anxiety that manifests into excessive worrying and feelings of being on edge. You may feel like you are walking on eggshells around your baby and your family. You may even feel that you're doing everything wrong. Due to exhaustion, you may notice a lack of interest in hobbies or things that you once enjoyed. You may also see changes in appetite and lack of eating, loss of energy and motivation, and trouble sleeping or wanting to sleep all the time. It is important to not fault yourself for these changes you are experiencing. These are normal experiences and you, yourself, are not to blame. It's Rox talks about her scary experiences with sleep deprivation in her video as well.
It was another time I had got up in the middle of the night to make his bottle. I was using those kind of bottles that have the little bags on the inside and you just pour the milk in there or whatever. And then, it was in the refrigerator already made, and I wanted to heat it up a little bit. So I was like, I'm just going to put the bottle in the pot for a few seconds, just kind of knock the chill off. Y'all tell me, why did I fall asleep? Okay, I woke up maybe, I don't know how long, much later it was, but when I woke up, the whole house was full of smoke. I went to the kitchen, and that damn bottle had been melted all the way down to the nipple. Okay, the fucking bottle wasn't even there no more. It was just the cap, and that was it, and the top of the nipple. I had to burn the whole thing. You guys, I was like just a fucking nervous wreck. And it was more of those kind of stories. I just was exhausted, and I could not quite get it together.
You may even find yourself with the difficulty thinking or focusing and crying for no reason. These mental fogs are not a weakness. You may notice a lack of interest in your baby and of motherhood. This does not make you a bad mother. Intense mood swings and feelings of being overwhelmed juggling all of your responsibilities are completely normal. April Sunny discusses her intense mood swings.
On top of my daughter having colic, I'm almost positive, you guys, that's what triggered my postpartum. It takes nothing for, I could be here, you guys, and my mood would just plummet. I could be so happy at one moment, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm laughing now, but trust me, it was no laughing matter when I was going through it.
Meet the Masons here on YouTube goes into how overwhelmed she felt being a new mother.
Her latch was terrible, and it was not what I thought that breastfeeding was gonna be. You know, some people said it was gonna hurt, but I didn't know I was gonna experience that type of pain. And I'm so grateful for the pump. Like, that changed my life. I think that lifted my spirits, honestly, when I realized I could pump and like, hey, somebody else deal with her during this time. I remember not wanting to feed her because it hurt so much, and I'm like, why do you want to eat again? I remember getting angry and frustrated, like, oh my gosh, you're crying again. Oh my gosh, can someone just get this baby? Like, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Finally, you may have thoughts of suicide and wishing you were dead, or thoughts of hurting your child. If these do happen, it is imperative that you speak to someone you trust and seek help from a licensed mental health professional. Makeup Sincere discusses her experiences with negative thoughts directed towards her child in her video, Storytime, My Postpartum Depression.
I was here in my apartment. Kyle was on actually this couch right here, and I was in the kitchen boiling some water to make some rice, and he was just looking, just a happy baby, looking at me, just jumping on the couch with his little diaper on and just being such a cute bundle of joy. But all I saw in my head was like, damn, how would he scream if I threw this boiling water on him? It's like, damn, I wonder how would he scream if I threw this boiling hot water on this baby. And all I pictured in my head was like him screaming. Like, how would the pain feel? Like, that's real nigga shit how I felt. And 2.5 seconds later, I was like, Karen, what the fuck? So I turned off the stove. I went and I sat down with Kyle, gave him a hug, gave him a kiss, and was playing with him. Okay, whatever. That was over. I have to this. I just told Richard this story maybe like before I did this YouTube video, because I didn't want him to find out about this on YouTube. So I said, hey, I'm gonna do a postpartum story, and this is how I was feeling throughout the time.
You must remember that you are not alone and that there are people in this world who care about you and your well-being. You are loved and appreciated, and your struggles do not define you. They do not make you less of a person or a parent. They strengthen you. It must also be understood that these are just common symptoms of PPD and should not be used as a diagnosis. Postpartum depression must be diagnosed by a licensed medical professional. Fathers can also suffer from paternal depression. Prenatal and postpartum depression can look different in men than it does in women. Men can experience some of the traditional symptoms I listed before, such as fatigue and changes in sleep or appetite, but they often exhibit fewer outwardly emotional expressions, such as crying. New fathers may experience anxiety and depression, but be reluctant to talk about it. Common symptoms for paternal postpartum depression include anger, sudden outbursts or violent behavior, an increase in impulsive or risk-taking behavior, including turning to substances such as alcohol or prescription drugs, irritability, low motivation, physical symptoms such as headaches, muscle aches, stomach or digestion issues, poor concentration, suicidal thoughts, withdrawing from relationships, and working a lot more or a lot less. Anxiety is also common in men during and after pregnancy. It is very important that we look after fathers during the pre- and postnatal periods. Men are generally more likely to suffer in silence. To my men, remember that what you're experiencing is normal. You are not less of a father or less of a man for struggling with your mental health. You are loved, and there are people in this world dedicated to your success. I would like to take this section to talk directly to those of you who have a loved one suffering from or susceptible to postpartum depression. It is imperative that you create community around your mothers during this time and uplift them during this time of immense change. The first step is to acknowledge that your loved one has just experienced one of the most beautiful yet traumatic experiences that life has to offer. Their body is extremely tired, and so is their mind. Give them a break. They might be cranky, but you would be too if you pushed a child out of your cervix. Offer help, but don't be overbearing. And to my mothers and aunties who have children, don't force your parenting styles onto new mothers. Everyone's parenting is different, and the last thing a new parent needs is someone breathing down their neck, telling them they're doing everything wrong. This added stress isn't helping the mother or the child. Now, I'm not saying don't offer advice at all, but just to be mindful as to how you give it. Instead of making your advice a demand, make it a suggestion.
That day forward, I think my mom really saw me and saw what I was going through. And she came in there like a freaking superhero.
Problem.
Go, Linda. Go, Linda. Go, Linda. She cooked the food. She helped me clean. She rocked my baby. She fed me. Like, she just came in there and did everything I needed her to do. And she was everything I needed her to be in those moments. I'm so thankful for her.
Also, make a point to separate mother from baby. I know that newborns are all cute and snuggly and all you want to do is gobble them up, but don't make the new baby the only reason you visit the new mothers. Talk to the parents about their lives outside of parenting and engage in their interests. Make your best effort at ensuring that each mother is seen as an entity within herself. If you absolutely cannot exist without having baby time, offer to babysit. Give the parent a night off. Trust me, it will pay off, even if a night off just looks like 6 hours of interrupted sleep.
If it wasn't for my best friend Nakia, who came down the day that I was discharged from the hospital and stayed with me, and Richard's mom, who was here throughout my whole pregnancy, I don't know what I would do without that lady. His sister came down for Tampa. My sister came down for Tampa. My house was packed with people. If it wasn't for those people who came to my house and just was like, Karen, stay your ass in this room, relax, we're gonna take care of Kyle, I don't know, y'all would have saw me on the news.
The second step in helping a loved one with PPD is to recognize the signs and symptoms. Some of the common symptoms of PPD, which I highlighted earlier, include feelings of sadness, irritability, and anxiety. Your loved one may also experience difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite, and a lack of interest in activities that she used to enjoy. If you notice any of these symptoms in your loved one, it's important to talk to her about what she's going through and reiterate the fact that you care about them and that you are available to help in any way necessary. The third step is to offer support and encouragement. This can involve listening in on your loved one's concerns and providing reassurance that she's not alone. You can also offer to help with household chores or to take care of the baby for the day so that your loved one can get some rest. Your loved one may express feelings of inadequacy surrounding their parenting skills that may manifest due to trouble breastfeeding, producing milk, or being able to soothe their child. You must remind them that they are good parents and that they are not failing their child or you. Another important way to help a loved one with PPD is to educate yourself about the condition. Now, just by watching this video, you are achieving this step. This can help you to better understand what your loved one is going through and to offer more effective support. You can read books or articles about PPD, attend support groups or counseling sessions with your loved one, or even speak to a healthcare provider about how best to help your loved one. Showing your loved one that they are not alone in this experience may make them more accepting of help. Finally, it's important to remember that recovery from postpartum depression is a process, and it may take some time for your loved one to feel better. It's important to be patient and understanding about this time, and to continue offering support and encouragement as long as it's needed. You can encourage your loved one to seek help from a mental health professional, such as counseling or medication if necessary. With the right help and support, your loved one can live without postpartum depression interrupting their daily life. If you're someone who suspects that you are suffering with PPD, I have compiled a list of resources for you. Now, these mostly cater to Black women, but are open to use from women of all backgrounds. Postpartum depression can be very daunting, but it is imperative that you know that you do not, I repeat, you do not have to suffer in silence. Remember to acknowledge that everything you are feeling is okay. You are not some anomaly in a sea of normal mothers. There are millions of women who have experienced what you are experiencing and millions more who will experience the same. You are not alone. But remember, the sooner you start, the better. One resource that is accessible and free is the internet. Questions like what is depression and what is postpartum depression and how can it manifest become a little less taboo when you research them anonymously in the safety of your own space. There are also plenty of support groups that exist for women experiencing postpartum depression. Social media is a great way to connect with other parenting and pregnant Black women on a more personal level while still maintaining whatever level of privacy you are comfortable with. Many Black women use personal blogs, Facebook groups, online magazines, and even conversational social media platforms such as Twitter to connect with others in the same situation. When you read about other Black mothers' experiences with PPD, you will begin to feel less alone and realize that you are not crazy. The Shades of Blue project was founded by Kay Matthews in 2013 after the birth of her stillborn daughter, Troya Simone. Their mission statement reads, "We are dedicated to helping women of color before, during, and after childbirth with community resources, mental health advocacy, treatment, and support. Our vision is to change the way women are currently being diagnosed and treated after giving birth and experiencing any adverse maternal mental health outcomes. Our vision is that our acknowledge, respect, and support method will be the adaptable change agent for healthcare professionals and healthcare systems operations and their engagement with patients." Since journaling as a healing method is a big component of the Shades of Blue project, Matthews designed a structured journal with prompts relating to mental health. She also runs a quarterly program where 8 to 10 parents meet each week to complete journal activities and talk about what's worrying them. Sometimes she even brings in experts for sessions on topics like sleep or cooking demos. Ultimately, the program's goal is to build an understanding, supportive community for new parents. You're making a commitment to your mental health, which will be put on the back burner as a pregnant person and new parent, she says. We build off the relationship that women come in needing. They become friends, they are connected to each other. Shades of Blue is immensely dedicated to Black maternal health and has even created 7 different support groups to aid Black mothers, including pregnant and postpartum, teen moms, single moms, loss at any stage, LGBTQ+, teen and young adults, and general mental health. Access to their support group is a wonderful way of getting in contact with other Black women experiencing the same thing as you. Another great place to find community is through groups on Facebook. Facebook groups allows for communities, small and large, to find a home. There are plenty of postpartum depression Facebook support groups, and a few are dedicated specifically to the needs of Black women. A group founded on May 26, 2021 by Sophia Porter is Safe Space for Black Moms Postpartum Depression/Anxiety Edition and has over 360 members and is extremely active. Its description reads as the first ever group for Black women experiencing postpartum depression and or anxiety, the safe space to have their voices heard and to learn how much they are not alone on this common journey. This is a private group for privacy's sake, but access to the group itself should be simple for mothers. Including this Facebook group, there are hundreds more full of people willing to assist mothers through their postpartum depression. The right support group does exist out there for you. Don't be afraid to find community within your community, as in your family and friends. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child, and you have that village backing you. It may be hard reaching out to your loved ones for help, but please remember that this is not a weakness. Having the awareness and courage to ask for help is a strength in and of itself. Start with the people in your life you think will be the most receptive to you speaking openly and honestly. You may be surprised to learn that they struggle too, and even feel like you can ask them to help you manage your stress and anxiety. Don't be afraid to lean on others for help. If you're willing and open to it, and if it's accessible to you, seek help from a medical professional. Having the ability to talk freely to an unbiased person may be just what you need. You may need to request a referral to a mental and emotional health professional from your primary care physician. You can find mental health professionals through search features on the websites of Psychology Today and Black Women Birthing Justice. One thing you should consider when picking a mental health professional is shared experience. Many women of color see better results when they are talking to someone who can empathize with them due to shared life experiences, whether that be by race, gender, or upbringing. The Black Women Birthing Justice website does a great job at outlining the resources available to Black mothers to aid in their mental health, such as Postpartum.net, which provides postpartum support to women internationally, and Psychology Today, that has a search engine specifically created for locating Black and African American therapists. Black women are also taking the matter of Black mental health into their own hands. 6 months after giving birth to her daughter, Jade Kearney was struggling with postpartum depression whilst finishing up her second master's degree program at NYU. She found an extreme scarcity in mental health professionals who could help Black women through these types of situations. In response to this, Kearney created SheMatters. SheMatters is a community designed to support and meet the mental health needs of Black women and approaches Black women's mental health using a multifaceted perspective. According to Kearney, therapists pay a fee to be on the website and be connected to Black women who want therapy. But the things that's different with our app and others is that these therapists are culturally competent and understand the very tumultuous relationship that Black women have had in the healthcare system. There are over 7,000 people who have signed up to use the website, and there are 180 trained therapists on the website and 700 on the waiting list. A final resource worth considering is finding a doula. A doula is a trained professional who provides continuous physical, emotional, and informational support to their client before, during, and after childbirth to help them achieve the healthiest and most satisfying experience possible. A birth doula assists the birthing person and their family before and during childbirth. They provide non-medical, emotional, and physical support during pregnancy and the birthing process. Doulas work with the rest of the birthing team and are there to assist the birthing person and support their helpers or partner. Postpartum doulas provide families information and support on infant feeding, emotional and physical recovery from childbirth, infant soothing, and coping skills for new parents. They might also help with light housework, fix a meal, and help incorporate the older children into the new experience. Doulas provide a personal touch to your pregnancy and postpartum experience that you may not find in a clinical setting. They are often an irreplaceable aspect of these journeys. And finding a Black doula is easy. Through Black Women Birthing Justice, Sista Midwife Productions, National Black Doula Association, Bebo Mia for Canada, and DONA International, you can easily locate a doula in your area that can meet your needs. Doula costs vary widely depending on where you live, but typically range from several hundred to a couple $1,000s, which can be a steep commitment for some. If you have health insurance, ask your insurance company for a list of doulas in their directory. Some insurance companies will reimburse you for doula services. If your insurance company doesn't, make a formal request so they know it's a demand. If you can't afford a doula, try looking for a community-based doula. These doulas offer culturally appropriate care to people in communities at risk of poor outcomes. They're generally paid through community programs, federal or state governments, or private funding. Hopefully, you will find the perfect doula for you.
What I did was I started praying more, meditating, consulting with my mother. God and my mother are the best therapy. That's what I needed, and that's what I received. Even though you're no longer going through postpartum depression, it is important for us to hear those stories because your story is going to help someone else get through their story.
But I overcame it, guys. It took a while. I'm not gonna lie. It took months. For me, some people's depression lasts weeks, some people months. I had a little bit of postpartum depression and anxiety, so it was hard for me to get out and be around people and stuff like that. But eventually I got over it, and it's a process. Like every day, it'll get better. Like honestly, it'll get better. I don't want you to think there's this switch that's gonna happen and ta-da, like it's gonna be over. And it can happen if you pray and ask God for a miracle. Like I still believe miracles happen, but for me it was a process, and I'm grateful for the process. And I think a lot of people deal with processes, so that's what worked for me.
I'm a G, which is why I was able to get through this, and you are too. Your baby loves you, you love your baby, and it is what it is. God put you in that situation for a reason. God believes that you can carry a child, and God believes that you could be a mother, a good mother. So you need to speak to somebody if that's how you're feeling.
Looking forward to having a baby, or those of you guys who are new moms who are having a hard time and not really sure who you can turn to, and just know that it does get better.
Hi, thank you all for watching this video. I would like to reiterate some messages I stated earlier. If you are struggling with depression, anxiety, or postpartum depression, I want to remind you that your feelings are valid and no one can ever take that from you. You are loved, and there are people in this world that are committed to your well-being. I know that sometimes it can feel like you're stuck in a deep well with no ladder to help you out, but there is hope. I wish you all the best in your mental health journeys and pray for nothing less than love and happiness to wash over you. I would like to give a special thanks to Dr. Lisa E. Wright and Johns Hopkins University for providing me with the ability to produce this video. This video is a part of my final project for a class I am taking at Johns Hopkins called Reintroduction to Writing, Black Birthing Women. It is taught by Dr. Wright, and with her and this class, I've learned so much about Black maternal health. Thank you again for watching. Goodbye.